Hey everyone, and welcome to Just a Bit Outside, presented by WaFd Bank. Join a best bank at wafdbank.com. I'm Michelle Ludtka, and this week we have got all kinds of fun things to discuss as former UW running back Terry Hollimon and Super Bowl 48 champion and former Seahawks running back Robert Turbin join Aaron Levine and myself for their hot takes from the sidelines. Take a listen.
Let's jump right into our hot topics today, starting with kind of a very weird, interesting story that, I've kind of seen develop over social media for the last couple of days. The European Super League for soccer, wanting to take the best of the best in Europe and put them all together. And everyone seemed real gung-ho when this news came out over the weekend. But then in the last couple of days, teams have been pulling out, saying they want nothing to do with it. There's a lot of money backing this. Personally, I think it just seems like a lot of drama. Your guys' takes on the development of this situation and the chaos there.
I mean, it's Europe. It's going to always be drama, right? That's what it's all about. Hoity-toity drama. It's kind of a weird thing for me. I'm not fully, on board with everything that's going on there. I know that soccer has been hemorrhaging a lot of money over the last few years, and this was a way that they were going to use to try to generate some income for some of the teams over there. But I think it was going to be concentrated on just the top teams, and I think that was a lot of the problem, that they thought the money that was going to be generated by this whole big thing was going to be just gorged up by the top 15, top 20 teams. And over there's a lot of tradition and history that's involved with it. And when you have a super league like that, some of the smaller teams get left out and don't have that chance to be that Cinderella team that makes it into the next league or the next championship. So it is what it is.
Here's the crazy part. FC Barcelona is one of the most recognizable clubs in the world, and I believe they're about in $1 billion worth of debt. Mm-hmm. How do you even explain that? So yes, there's $6 billion backing this league. Would it work? And again, I'm not a huge soccer fan at all, but would it work? Yeah. But would it dilute the game with the same matchups and deprive fans all across the continent of kind of real competition throughout the year? Absolutely. I mean, Chelsea and Real Madrid are going to be playing in the Champions League semifinals next week. That's going to be special because it only happens every once in a while. If you're seeing them play multiple times, that's going to get old. And worst of all, it boxes out a number of teams from smaller clubs who are looking to get there every year. And I understand that there would be spots available to qualify, but if you take a look at a team like Tottenham Hotspur, they haven't won a Premier League championship since the league reformed all the way back in 1992. But they're going to get a free pass into some tournament every single year. That's ridiculous to me. And I will also add this. I play in a British trivia league once a week. And I can't tell you how much they talked about this when I played with them yesterday morning. They wouldn't shut up about it. And they couldn't stop talking about how atrocious it was. They are so passionate about this. And that's ultimately what put the kibosh on the whole thing in England, at least. So I commend the fans for speaking up and having some semblance of a decision or an influence on the decision here.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that. Let's not forget about the fans. I mean, how important are the fans as it pertains to this entire league? You take out a certain amount of teams and you separate them. What about the other guys, the little brothers per se, right? And their fans, these people that have been cheering on these teams for years and years. You talked about soccer being such a traditional sport, and it is. And a lot has to do with the fans in that aspect. And so separating the teams, I don't agree with that. I'm glad they put a halt to it. You never know who's going to get in. That's the great thing about sports. So even though you have a lower tier team, these fans are supporting their teams, every time that they get the opportunity, and you never know. Anybody can win the championship any given year. I'm glad that they put a stop to it.
You got to look out for the AFC Richmonds of the world and the coaches like Ted Lasso. They have to have a chance every year also to get into this big event.
More importantly, Aaron, I want to know how many goals you've scored this season, if any.
Big bagel right here.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Go back to British trivia.
Listen, I can get general knowledge stuff, but if you tell me the difference between Oxfordshire and Wiltshire and Berkshire, I couldn't tell you any of those counties or Durban, whatever you want to call them over there. I definitely had a disadvantage.
Aaron, I love that you own your trivia stuff. You're so involved with it, which makes me really excited for our next topic here because Terry and Rob, I'm not sure if you're aware, but Aaron is our reigning trivia master on Just a Bit Outside, our show here, and he has different people take him on in trivia. And so I'm excited to hear his answer on this one because I think I know who his answer would be for it. But the next topic is, the future of who is going to host Jeopardy. We've seen some sports people kind of throw their hand in the game. We saw Aaron Rodgers host one day and then said, oh, he could easily do this while still playing football. Now they're saying Joe Buck is going to come in here, the longtime Fox NFL play-by-play announcer, and he wants to try. Thoughts on kind of mixing those sports personalities as possibility in this like long-standing tradition of the show? Do you think it would work? Do you think they have a chance? Or is there someone in the sports world besides Aaron Levine that we really want to see host Jeopardy?
I don't want to host. I think Terry would be great, though.
I want to be on it with you.
Well, you're next up then. Let's take you on in trivia one of these following weeks.
I think I'm more of a Family Feud kind of guy, to be honest. But I think there's a number of people that could host this. Aaron Rodgers, of course, would he be able to do both? I don't know. I mean, he probably could, but then he maybe wouldn't be as good of a quarterback during the season as we would normally see with the distraction of trying to host a show. I don't want to see Joe Buck on it. You have to have some sort of humor, though. Joe Buck is not funny at all. His jokes are lame. At least Aaron Rodgers has a few jokes you can laugh at. And I think that's important as it pertains to picking the next host for the show.
I love the honesty there, my friend. Way to just say it like it is.
Joe Buck. You know what's funny? I was on a podcast some time ago, and a guy suggested that Marshawn Lynch should be the next host for Jeopardy. And I said, that would be fantastic. That probably
People would watch.
I would watch. And Aaron knows my feelings about Jeopardy. It overwhelms me a bit, but I would watch if Marshawn was the host.
If there's a TV anywhere around me and it's 7:30 anywhere where I'm at, I'm watching Jeopardy. I'm a Jeopardy nerd. I love the show. I was a huge fan of Alex Trebek. There will be no one to ever replace him. He's a one-of-a-kind guy. That being said, Aaron Rodgers did a pretty good job. He hosted for like an entire week, and he actually did a pretty good job. I was actually surprised that he was as like monotone and kind of just subdued as he was. I was like, this guy plays in the National Football League? And he's like, Aaron Rodgers. And the question is, look, he did a really good job of being melancholy, just not the typical boneheaded football player.
Yeah.
But he did a really good job. I just don't think he could do it full time. I'm all about LeVar Burton. I want to see Mr. Reading Rainbow himself out there taking the place of Alex Trebek.
Nothing warmed my heart more than Aaron Rodgers' final Jeopardy answer actually being Stanford, since he went to Cal on the last night that he hosted. I agree with you, though, Terry. LeVar Burton, we all grew up with him on Reading Rainbow. The only downside there, and not to sound ageist, he is 64 years old. And so I kind of want somebody in there who is younger, who can have the job for 20 or 30 years like Alex Trebek did. Mina Kimes would be great, I think. Give her a chance.
Ooh, yeah.
I've also been impressed with Ken Jennings and Mike Richards, the executive producer of both Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. I'm also excited to see Robin Roberts in the next few weeks and also George Stephanopoulos.
Wow.
So we'll see.
That's a host of names there. I just hope that they get somebody with, like you talked about the tone that Aaron Rodgers had, somebody in there with some personality, mix it up a little bit,
They have to kind of be a cool nerdy. You know what I'm saying? You can't be all the way nerdy. You have to be a kind of quirky nerdy that people
are gonna already. Legend. We had the legend already.
See, and I think let's start the petition now online to just get Marshawn, even if it's just one episode. I would just love to see him. I mean, he was great with Dr. Fauci last week. Let's see him do Jeopardy now. Everything Marshawn touches, I think, is pure gold. So
you have to have the FCC button like on standby. Like
yes,
like
true. All right, moving on to our next topic, guys. Baseball season's full swing, and our Seattle Mariners are actually looking really, really good, leading the division. As a longtime Mariners fan, I don't want to get my hopes up too much. Do we think it's the real deal? Or is this the team that's finally going to break the however many years of no playoff appearance streak?
Well, I'll tell you, this has been the time for differences to happen, if that makes sense. If there's a time for the Mariners to win the AL West or make the playoffs or anything like that after not being so good for so many years, this is the year. Haven't we seen it? We've seen it in the NBA. We saw it in the NFL last year. Players and teams just completely coming out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, like, they're really good. And so, you know, I'm not saying like for the Mariners it's some sort of miracle or anything like that, like it's a hoax or anything like that. But chances are there's still a chance, and they're playing well right now. Let's see if they can hold strong the rest of the season.
I'll tell you what, man. The Mariners, they do it to me every year, man. And I compare the Mariners to my GameStop stock right now. It's like everybody in the beginning is like, "Oh my God, Terry, you got to check out the GameStop. You got to get on. It's on fire. It's hot." And I'm just by their side watching it, like, yeah, whatever. And then finally, I'm like, okay, the GameStop is hot. I jump in and I lost my house. I love everything. I can't buy food for my kids. That's how the Mariners make me feel every year. They start out on fire. This team is so great. These guys are young. They're hungry. The bats are popping. The pitchers are, doing their thing. And finally, like 25 games into the season, I finally turn on the TV to watch a Mariners game, and they get beat 15-0. And then they lost like 12 in a row. And then they're at the bottom of the AL West, and they're the laughing stock again. So I don't want to be, in the spot where I'm holding the GameStop anymore. I want to let it go.
So you're saying right now Mariners are equivalent to Dogecoin if we're talking about cryptocurrencies as well. I mean, they're on their way up right now, but at any point they can absolutely tank, just like your GameStop stock did also.
You've been looking at my portfolio again, haven't you, Aaron?
You kept your laptop open. What can I say? I look at it this way, though. I have no expectations for them other than hopefully reaching 500 this year. So if they do that or anything over that, and they're in contention for the division title or a playoff spot, that's icing on the cake for me. And what we've seen so far is, this team has a lot of fight. It has a great energy about it. They don't give up very easily. And if they can keep up throughout this whole year, they're going to win a good amount of games, and they're going to convince some people about this team's future. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, they started the season 10-6 without Kyle Lewis, without Jared Kelnick, who is going to be up with this team at some point this year, and without James Paxton, who's unfortunately out for the rest of the season. So to start 10-6 with those three factors out of the gate, that's impressive. And if the bullpen can continue the way they have, who knows? I mean, because there doesn't seem to be a dominant team in the AL West this season. So there's a chance for them to compete because they're not going up against a behemoth of the Houston Astros from a few years back.
So I think they suck less than everybody else sucks. That's the motto for the Mariners.
There you go.
So look, two key factors in my opinion. Number one, can they overcome adversity? You talked about they always start well, then they get on this downward spiral, and then it just keeps spiraling, right? Perhaps that's indicative of them being a young team. Maybe they've matured now, they can overcome some of those things. And then the other factor is, when they get in those big games, you got to execute and you got to be able to win. So remains to be seen, but come on, man. You gotta have confidence. You gotta have confidence in your stock, man.
I like that. And I think that's the perfect segue into our last topic today, because you got to have confidence. You got to believe in yourself. And as we've got the NFL draft coming next week, we've got a whole slew of young players that have that confidence, that believe in themselves, that are hoping to get a phone call next week. Obviously, we saw college football season unlike any other, with everything that went on with COVID and restrictions and cancellations and bowl games, but not bowl games. I mean, the whole bit. No combine, yes, there were some virtual pro days and some things like that. I'm curious how much you think this weird year that we've had will affect what we see in this year's NFL draft. Do you think it's going to be clear cut, like the typical guys that you expect to get drafted? Or do you think there will be more breakthrough guys or less breakthrough guys because they didn't get to have those experiences?
Usually there's a stat that I heard early in the year about, how many players have entered that have signed with agents, right? Usually it's over 1,000. I think this year was like less than 500 players coming out. A lot of the seniors opted to take another year in college, et cetera. But I think it'll be clear cut in the beginning. Your top 5, maybe 6 picks. These guys, are dudes. Going to play well. Most of them are quarterbacks. I think where they go is kind of going to decide their future a little bit, because sometimes organizations can kind of ruin a quarterback's chances to be great. But outside of that, it's literally going to be hit or miss. It's going to be like one of those 50-50 things. You don't have a lot of film on guys. Pro days and 40-yard dashes and combines only tell you so much about a prospect. And so you're going to see some breakthrough guys that you've never heard of before. And you're going to see guys that you sort of expected to play well, maybe drafted in the first round, that kind of flop. So I think it's going to be even both ways.
Yeah, I agree with Robert with a lot of what he said there. I mean, it's going to be a lot of quarterbacks selected early in this draft. There's a lot of good quality, talented guys coming out of college this year. Again, like Robert said, there are going to be a lot of guys that should have and could have come out that decided to go back to college. And I think that's going to be good for them. Next year is going to be crazy because you're going to get a lot of people who got their 5th and 6th years of college football under their belt coming out. You're going to get some of the younger guys that got a full season this coming year under their belt coming out. There's going to be a lot of people getting drafted next year. There's going to be a lot of people available. And I don't know, like it's going to be very interesting to see how this entire pandemic affects, the ripple effects moving forward, not just this season, but the following season and the years to come. So it should be interesting this year for sure.
I'm not sure about strategy-wise, but this plays into the strategy of John Schneider and the Seahawks, is because there was going to be so much uncertainty heading into this year's draft. Who was going to be in college? Who could they scout? This is the reason why they only have 3 draft picks going in. I mean, usually they go into a draft and they end up picking 8, 9 guys. And it's not to say that they won't finish this draft with maybe 5, 6 players instead of the 3 picks that they're going into the draft with. But they wanted guys that they knew could perform at the NFL level. And that's why they made the free agent moves that they made. And they also positioned themselves and were able to sacrifice certain draft picks along the way, knowing that we're going to be getting a proven veteran as opposed to somebody coming right out of college where we haven't been able to scout them as well as we would have liked. We haven't been able to go to an NFL combine this year to see them. Obviously there were pro days, but not to be able to see everybody all in one place and among the top prospects. As far as the draft go, I think everything's going to be different this year. And to be honest, I kind of enjoyed seeing everybody at home last year. Bill Belichick and his cat or dog or whatever, and Cliff Kingsbury puffing his chest out at his mansion in Arizona and going into people's home. I mean, John Schneider himself, they had to turn his entire living room into a draft headquarters. And that was, I think, one of the really bright spots of this time last year when there was absolutely nothing going on in the sports world, for us to kind of be able to see everything in a completely different light than we'd ever seen it before.
Yeah, exactly. We will see, and it'll be fun to watch. Little plug right now, we've got you fully covered with draft coverage leading up to the draft and all through the draft on Q13 FOX with the fabulous Aaron Levine. But that does it for us today, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your takes from the sidelines. As always, so wonderful to see you guys.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for having us.
Now, no trivia this week, but if you want to take on Aaron and be a part of On the Clock in the future, just head over to Twitter and send a note to Aaron at Q13 FOX for your chance to join us on the show. And just like that, another episode of Just a Bit Outside presented by WaFd Bank, Join a Best Bank, is in the books. A huge thanks to Terry and Rob for joining us this week. Remember, you can find all episodes at justabitoutside.fox or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. For Aaron Levine and our production crew, I'm Michelle Ludtka. Have a great rest of your week, guys.